I just wanted to follow up, Gerardo, maybe somebody else. I wanted to follow up on a comment from Mr. Ryan about structuring seed stage investments needing milestones, which, of course, seems like a good thing to do, both in terms of structuring the company's progress and reassuring the investor that things are going well. But kind of pushback that we may get as entrepreneurs is that everybody knows that it takes a lot of time to raise funds, right? And so the concern is that as we're pushing towards those milestones, we're putting ourselves in a situation as we raise small amounts of money as not to be adequately positioned at the conclusion of meeting those milestones to really, hit the ground running with the progress of that. So I was wondering if you could comment from your point of view about how to address that potential.
So I think the first important to be more specific is as much, it's always case specific, in terms of what's just available to you, but as much as possible from the entrepreneur, avoid specific milestones, because if you have specific milestones written into some note or whatever investment vehicle, and you don't hit those by whatever specified time, that gives a ton of leverage back to the investors to push for whatever they want, basically. And what I was specifically speaking to was more of the, in an ideal situation, you're raising $2 million, you find one investor whose incentives line up perfectly, has the same time horizon, has the same exit incentives, everything lines up. What I was speaking to was more of the practical situation of if you're going out to raise, whatever, $1 million, and you're getting lukewarm interest, but no one's fully diving in, no one's putting the money down. It might make sense to find that one person who maybe can't write that $1 million check, but can write 100,000 and say, okay, this is my practical reality. If I'm going to take this money, what do I need to do with it in order to get to a point where I can then either raise the other 900,000 I need or raise another 200. My point was more to the practical application of understanding the reality of the situation, understanding that there's a lot of competition to raise early stage financing, and taking what is given to you and figuring out a way to maybe deviate from plan A and have a plan B and plan C in terms of financing and linking that financing to the operations of your company. Is that clear, or am I being?
No, I think that is clear. Just the comment which I and perhaps other people may have received is that, well, what do you meet that milestone, you use up that $100,000, now you're now you have no money in order to execute quickly, in a competitive space to fully capitalize on it.
I mean, you should have them. I mean, again, if you're with the right investor, right? I mean, so some of this is, look, seed funding, you're going to need to go out, but you should know that on day one. If day one is hit these milestones, and then you're going to raise capital, you should be raising capital. For a lot of us, I think it's actually hit these milestones, and we have secondary and tertiary checks that we can invest into the company, and you should know that, right? And in this day and age, you should be very careful about that, right? I have seen investors take advantage of that situation, but I think most investors that are in it for the long haul, they want to see hit those milestones, because that's when they can write other checks. They see the progress that they can report back to that. We've gone much more to milestones. Again, we've done a lot historically, but in the very early stage, we've returned back to a model where oftentimes we'll write the check by ourselves, so we won't work with a syndicated deal early on. We'll write it might be going into research, and these are $100,000 up to $500,000 checks, and we want to see a set of almost always technical milestones, but in the meantime, we'll have someone on our team, doing the business. So we'll actually be talking to other academics in the field, understanding exactly what's going on, and actually trying to get the other side of what we're hearing, and then looking at the business plan. And then what we'll do is, and we want to see you hit those milestones, because it's a really firm ability to say, can this team execute? Because it's going to be a long game. Once they do, we'll write, we'll either look to syndicate, but sometimes look to bring in a partner, sometimes we'll write the next check as part of that to get it to what I'll call a point in the business where you can bring in a traditional syndicate and write your first $5 million check to get it going. So we've come really back strongly to milestones, and we've seen it. I've seen venture funds, and I'm not sure I get this for the long term, but formed solely with corporate partners, and its milestone hit these 3 milestones, we'll buy the company for this X multiple. So I think it's really coming back, for especially the long-term projects, to milestone-based projects, which means you and your investors should have a good, long, hard conversation about what they are, why they're valuable, and to your point, what's going to happen once we meet them. Because I think that's the direction that a lot of, at least the very early stages go.
A lot of excellent points there, but one of them, and I'm going to flip it around a little bit, the clarity and expectations. So people will always ask you, what are your use of funds? What are you going to spend the money on? But not only that, but having those deliverables. What are you going to accomplish with that use of funds? Okay, I'm going to hire a CEO, but what is that going to accomplish for the company? How is it going to transition it from the lab to a business that's managed, that you meet milestones? Because the reality is, in business, there are milestones you have to meet. And the other really good thing that I've heard was, take the money when it's available, right? Even if it doesn't match your ideal plan, but make sure you get a good partner that's going to work with you and help you and promote you, versus micromanaging you or disappearing when you need them most. So I think those are key points. All right, other questions from the group out here? Yes?
I would be interested in hearing a few words about best practices. So if you're a young entrepreneur, you're making a presentation to your firm, looking for capital, what would be some words of wisdom of either, what are things that are common mistakes that you constantly see, and you just get frustrated because you see it over and over again? Conversely, what are those things that separate when someone comes through the door and they're making a pitch, whether it's the way they present a particular piece of information, something they thought through, but what are those things where you walk out of that and say, that was really good?
We're most skeptical when people ask for too little money. That's a big red flag for us. Number two, time frames that are completely unrealistic. And number three, milestones that are not going to be met, certainly in the time frame and in the expense. We see it over and over where, especially first-time entrepreneurs fall into those traps, and then you lose your credibility right off the bat.
That's a great point. Is it ever too early to start raising capital? I mean, even if your company's not ready, you don't have your due diligence all organized. I mean, is there any rules about that? I mean, you could burn a lot of contacts, I would think, if you're not prepared. But
I think you said both halves of it.
yes, exactly.
I think it is important to build relationships, and if there are potential investors that you want to bring along as the company is maturing, and maybe you're not ready to raise the money yet, to be able to preliminarily present the company and the idea, and I'll be back when I'm ready. But that doesn't get you off the hook from having to do a competent job, because you'll burn that bridge very rapidly if you don't make the right impression. But at the same time, if you make that positive impression, I'm not yet ready to ask you for $1 million. We have a few more things we need to line up, and let's keep talking. Those kind of relations, it's pretty rare that you're going to go into a VC, make a pitch, and they pull out their checkbook. So this is a process, and starting it early is good, but you have to be properly prepared with that right information. And I agree with some of those the prior comments that the mix of the long-term vision and the short-term practical steps. Here's what I'm doing next. Here's what I'm doing 3 years from now.
Right.
Here's what I'm doing next week. Here's what I'm doing next month. But here are the things I'm going to accomplish this year. How I'm going to spend the money this year. Here's the vision. And not be short-sighted, and not be overly long-sighted,
Right.
But to show that you've got command of the industry, the practicalities of what are involved, understanding of the regulatory environment.
Right.
I think those are all part of making that pitch. I tend to get turned off a little bit by the concentration on exits. Our concentration is normally build a good company and the exit will take care of itself.
Right.
And the first thing an entrepreneur picks up is that if you'll invest $1 million, I'll make you $1 billion. I'm not terribly impressed. I like to see the command of the subject and the science before worrying about how I'm going to get out before I get my first dollar in.
I mean, there's a total bias too,
Absolutely,
right? Which is
absolutely.
that, you know, I mean, your own colleagues do this to you in the venture world, right? They give you an example, well, look, the reason we're continuing to fund this deal is because, look at this exit that just happened, right? I mean, this is
Right.
incredible bias that they give you the one successful one, but the 999 other ones don't go anywhere. And you're like, you're gonna, you know, am I that dumb to go around? To Charles' question, I will say one thing, we like looking at proxies, right? So I mean, and I saw a ton today, which is really good, right? So you come in, wow, you have your institution invested in you? That's impressive. Oh, we have some SBIRs or government dollars coming into it beside you. I mean, those are our proxies that come in. We love those proxies of
Right.
validation and
Right.
credibility, and we constantly look at those over and over. They build, we like an idea, the fact that you were able to take certain steps is really important to us down the road.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say just to go in a little different direction in terms
Sure.
of you answered it, just talk with it, you know, I'd say even from a very simple from a very simple perspective, a lot of times there's the beautiful baby syndrome, and you feel the need to, you've worked really hard on this, you're an expert in this field, and you feel the need to talk about paragraphs and paragraphs about just the background of the industry,
Right,
what's going on, you know, burying the lead just from a simple presentation perspective happens often. You know, when I meet people, I say I'm James Ryan, Scott Benjamin. I don't say, well, you know, in 1983, Jim Ryan met Sarah Vanderveer, and they.
Okay, so I have to change my introductions, okay, I got it. Let's go to the back, right back there.
Can I ask a follow-up to the previous question? What are some of the no-nos that, as an investor, you would demand as part of the deal as a term sheet? Like things that you wouldn't consider negotiating with investors. With the entrepreneur. You know, the no-nos. Maybe one single statement from each panel I'd like to know. And also, how does achieving those milestones affect the terms of the term sheets if they are able to be achieved before sitting down with the investors?
Okay, so I'm going to give up my moderating abilities. One statement from each of you on the no-nos, and then the second portion.
Do you mean no-nos that we shouldn't ask of an entrepreneur? I'm not sure what the no-nos are that you're referring to.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
So we have an airport rule. If your plane is, if your flight's just been canceled, and you're stuck with somebody for the next 3 hours waiting for your next flight, and you dread that, that's not somebody you want to invest in. So the big no-no for us is it's somebody that you're going to like a lot, because you may spend the next 5 or 10 years in this
And I would say an ambiguous cap table. If we don't know exactly what the ownership of, like, oh yeah, I had a co-founder 3 years ago, and we had a falling out a year ago, and he claims that he owns 25% of the company. Like, you can't, from a compliance, even like, for fiduciary duty to the LPs, you can't invest in companies where there's an ambiguity in terms of who specifically owns the company on what terms.
Everybody go? We're good? All right, well, we are out of time for this discussion, so I apologize for that, but I think some of these gentlemen will be around and we'll be milling around the back, so please get to them with questions. Thank you, gentlemen. That was excellent.
Thank you, Michael. That was and to all the panelists, that was an outstanding discussion. At this time, just bear with me, just another minute and a half. I'd like to introduce to you Corey Masella, the president of the Loyal and Capital Alliance. Corey has done a phenomenal job helping the organization. He's just going to make some concluding remarks.
First off, bear with me. I'll do this very quick because we're running a little bit late. So the first thing we want to do is really thank Cold Spring Harbor Labs and the Feinstein Institute for bringing such phenomenal science to us. And it was eye-opening, and all of us are surrounded in our lives with situations that this could affect. So thank you very much. What I wanted to do, and I'm flipping it for a second, I wanted to really thank our board, and because when you do this topic of science, and we're dealing with scientists, we have to make that conversion to make it a business and bring it to investors and try and bring that presentation so that there is a business acumen brought to it. The scientists are so brilliant that the business side of this is something that gets lost a little bit. And hopefully we did a really good job bringing that to you and our board, so I wanted to thank them all. I also wanted to thank Amanda for all the hard work she does, being up front, and the great attendance we had. We wouldn't have it without her. Our presenters, you guys all did a great job. You listened. I think we got the messages clear, so we want to thank them too. And of course, our sponsors. All of you, thank you. Without this all wouldn't come together. The last and most important thing is we have a capital forum on July 24th on consumer products, which is up there. Note, that is on a Thursday this time, so we're not going to kill a Friday for you during the summer. So if you have any companies that are looking in that area, please reach out to us. Those that are looking for the Series A's, that would be great for us, and we really appreciate you all coming. Thank you very much.